The truth is, our nation is more divided than ever.
The truth is, alternative facts are just plain delusional.
The media needs to be held accountable.
The truth is, locker room talk is harmless.
The truth is, we need to put the safety of the American people.
The truth is, we need a full investigation of any ties to Russia.
Well, that was that new TV spot from the New York Times, the first news spot for the paper in several years. It aired in a high-rent district during the Academy Awards last night. Times executive editor reporting that Trump has helped the paper's business, saying every time the president tweets, it drives subscriptions wildly. His words. Of course, President Trump continues to describe the Times, a paper he reads, by the way, every day, as failing wildly, his words. But then, what else would you expect from a president and an administration that seems hell-bent on a never-ending war with the political press? Now, we saw this play out late last week as well as into the weekend. First came this anti-press message from the White House chief strategist Steve Bannon at the CPAC conference on Thursday.
It's not only not going to get better, it's going to get worse every day in the media. And here's why. But by the way, the internal logic makes sense. They're corporatist, globalist media that are adamantly opposed to an economic nationalist agenda like Donald Trump has.
And again, Bannon's the same guy who said to the media what they ought to do is shut up and just listen. Now, a day later, President Trump continued the White House attack on the Fourth Estate.
I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people.
Think about that. Later on Friday, Press Secretary Sean Spicer held an informal gaggle about a dozen media outlets. Guess who wasn't invited? New York Times, Politico, LA Times, NPR, and others, all excluded. Other outlets declined to attend the gaggle as a consequence in a show of solidarity. Then this weekend, we learned of a new Spicer push aimed at stopping leaks from going from the West Wing to the press. Sometime last week, Spicer ordered his communication team into a closed-door meeting. There, a lawyer with the counsel's office checked everyone's phones for messaging apps that could be used to safely leak information to the press, even their private phones. So how do we know this happened? Well, because someone in the No Leaks meeting leaked the details to the media, of course. This is the same Sean Spicer who I may remind you during the transition, this is after the election, but before they formally came in, insisted he had nothing but the utmost respect for the press and that no outlet would be banned or excluded from covering the Trump White House. Back in December, Spicer told reporters, and I'm quoting directly here, his own words, President-elect Donald Trump will not ban individual news outlets from the White House as his campaign did from his rallies, and that there's a big difference between a campaign where it's a private venue using private funds and a government entity. We have respect for the press when it comes to the government, that this is something that you can't ban an entity from. And he even went on to say there's a big difference between democracy here and basically oppression, if you will. So, you know, Jeannie, it's one thing, you know, there's a good piece, I think Gil Collins or maybe Maureen Dowd had in the Times where there's this, you know, symbiotic relationship. This guy's too juicy not to cover everything he says, so you're giving him free press, but at the same end, he can't resist himself because he wants to be talked about, he wants to be covered, he wants to be loved, but he hates and he can't take it because he has the thinnest skin when he gets the bad coverage. And Lord knows he's given enough ammunition for this, but I've never seen a person win this fight against the press. And I just don't see it happening here either.
Yeah, I don't see him winning the fight, but I'm so glad you mentioned, I think it was Maureen Dowd's piece you mentioned about the symbiotic relationship, and then also the comment by the editor of the New York Times, because I think it's important we all recognize that there have been enormous benefits to the press of Donald Trump being in campaigning and being in office. They have enjoyed tremendous boon in ratings, tremendous boon in readership, so it has been very good for business, and I know several outlets that have increased coverage of news because of that. So, you know, they are benefiting from a Donald Trump presidency. He, of course, has benefited enormously during the campaign from their coverage. And sure, like all presidents, he doesn't like the negative coverage coming out of Washington, D.C., and he's going to continue to battle. But I think we lose focus when we have this discussion consistently about the press, that the real losers here are the American public, because we are always talking about Donald Trump's tweets, Donald Trump being upset at the press being upset at Donald Trump, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and we get so much less coverage about the important issues that are going on. And that is a huge, huge problem, as these two entities keep winning and the American public have no idea what's really going on in Washington, D.C. He had a very good weekend in some respects, none of which was covered.
No, in terms of both winning, Dominic, I'm not sure. Take a look at this poll, if I could bring up. This is who the public trusts on important issues, and you see the margin there, Dom. And listen, forget Trump at 37%. You know, I understand that number. The press, I would have thought, was a little bit higher, but they even have their issues with the public. But nonetheless, clearly, their trust more than Trump is. It's fascinating. This was covered, but you know this from covering Trump when he was in the city. For a guy who hates leaks and calls it fake news and the rest, he wrote the book on it with page 6 and everything else.
He doesn't hate leaks. He loves leaks. But you have to understand the distinction when it comes to Donald Trump. When it's a leak that makes him look 10 feet tall, or like Superman, that's solid news. When it's something that is exposing government waste or infighting within the Trump administration, that's fake news. Richard, I just want to say this to you. It is wicked what the president is doing. I want you to think about this and remember my prediction. When he keeps saying fake news and the media is so bad, what he's setting up, he's beating us down, but what he's setting up is when we get the goods on him, and it's coming, the ties with Russia, he's going to say, I told you it was fake news. So he's setting himself up for his defense right now.
The problem is every number shows they're not buying it, and I'm up against it, Andrew, but to me, there's a lot of stories. Dominic hit the biggest one. But if you look at what the other Trumps are doing right now with conflicts of interest, clearly, I can point to some stuff that's going on in Asia with the Trump boys, even Mar-a-Lago doubling the rate and all the rest. Plus, the leaks that are coming, they're voluntarily giving it up. It's going from Captain Queegan there in terms of who's going on, who's talking, whatever else. I think it's going to get bad. Even more than the public thinks, really quick, really soon, because as Jeannie mentioned in the last segment, the party and him are not on the same page here and from a priority standpoint. And if they're not going to get out of this, why keep defending him?
And think about the different kinds of leaks that we're getting. We're getting policy leaks, but then we're also getting lack of preparedness leaks, Keystone cops in the White House kind of leaks. So these are White House and executive branch staffers who were there before Trump and will probably be there after Trump, who are saying, you know what? This is not the way this is supposed to work, and they're sending out alarm signals. There's also some jockeying for position politically within the Trump administration. So none of it particularly makes Trump look good. That's just another incentive for him to try to castigate the press as best he can.
And again, they mentioned it too, the Correspondents' Dinner. Trump is going to sit that one out as well. I think a missed opportunity for him. If he sat there and just took all the abuse and looked like the bigger person out of it, he would have looked like the bigger person.
Like he did at the Al Smith dinner, or didn't do at the Al Smith dinner?
Obama scarred him so badly. When Obama back, that's why he's really not going.
Coming up next, Trump's immigration raids. He campaigned on getting just the bad people out of the country, but now it's a lot more than just the bad people being targeted. Even Trump supporters, they're now questioning if those raids are going further than maybe they needed to. That's coming up next when RFL returns.